2006, Indiana, the Ammons family, the house of 200 demons that terrorized Gary and convinced the police that the devil exists. The house at 3860 Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana, stood as an apparently ordinary structure in a neighborhood that had known better days. It was November of 2006 when LaToya Ammons, a 32-year-old single mother, first arrived at the property along with her 3 children, a 12-year-old girl, a 9-year-old boy, and the youngest at 7 years old. Grandmother Rosa Campbell, 57 years old, completed the family group seeking a fresh start in this industrial city of the American Midwest. Gary, once a prosperous steel capital, showed the scars of economic decline. Abandoned houses dotted the neighborhood, and Carolina Street was no exception. But the $650 monthly rent was what the family could afford, and the 2-story house seemed spacious compared to their previous dwelling. The white walls needed paint, the front porch creaked under the weight of years, and the basement emanated a damp smell that no amount of disinfectant seemed able to eliminate. From the first day, Rosa Campbell noticed something strange in the house's atmosphere. Documents from the Indiana Department of Child Services would later record her initial testimony. The basement windows, though hermetically sealed, always appeared covered in condensation. An inexplicable sense of weight seemed to gravitate over certain spaces, particularly in the second-floor hallway and near the basement stairs. The area neighbors kept their distance. Charles Reed, a Carolina Street resident for 23 years, would later declare to authorities that the house had remained empty for months before the Ammons' arrival. No family lasted more than a year in the property. Previous tenants simply disappeared without leaving forwarding addresses, abandoning even their security deposits. The first documented incident occurred exactly 7 days after the move. It was December 3rd of 2006, approximately 3 in the morning, when LaToya was awakened by the sound of footsteps on the upper floor. Thinking one of her children was out of bed, she went up to check. She found them all deeply asleep. The footsteps, however, continued resonating directly above her head, despite already being on the highest floor of the house. This event would be recorded in her first call to the Gary Police Department, though at that time it was simply classified as minor unverified disturbance. Before terror consumed their lives, the Ammons family led a modest but stable existence in Gary. LaToya worked as a nursing assistant on the night shift at Methodist Hospital, while Rosa took care of the children. School records from Roosevelt Elementary show that the 3 minors maintained average grades and regular attendance during the first months on Carolina Street. The family routine followed predictable patterns. Rosa prepared breakfast every morning at 6:30, the children boarded the school bus at 7:45, and LaToya slept until noon after her 12-hour night shifts. Afternoons passed between homework at the kitchen table and television programs in the living room. Sundays they attended the 10 o'clock service at Mount Vernon Baptist Church, where Reverend William Banks would later remember them as a devout family who never missed Mass. Lake County Department of Social Services documents reveal that the family had no previous history of problems. No reports of neglect, abuse, or domestic disturbances. Neighbors from their previous residence in Hammond, Indiana, described them to investigators as quiet, hard-working people. The former landlady, Margaret Sullivan, confirmed they always paid rent punctually during the 3 years they lived in her property. However, December of 2006 would mark the beginning of subtle changes. Methodist Hospital medical records show that LaToya began requesting shift changes with unusual frequency, citing family emergencies. Her co-workers noticed pronounced dark circles and a weight loss of approximately 7 kilograms in 6 weeks. The nursing supervisor, Patricia Holden, documented in her December 20th report that LaToya appeared distracted and occasionally disoriented during her rounds. The atmosphere on Carolina Street had begun to especially affect the children. The 9-year-old son's 4th-grade teacher, Jennifer Martinez, reported to the school counselor that the boy had become withdrawn and frequently fell asleep in class. When asked, the minor responded that things at home wouldn't let him sleep. The 12-year-old girl began complaining of constant headaches, with 17 visits to the school nurse recorded between December 2006 and January 2007. Rosa Campbell kept a notebook where she recorded household expenses, but gradually began to register other events. An entry from December 15th mentions, all the basement light bulbs burned out at the same time. 3rd time this month. December 18th she wrote, the children all slept in my room again. They say there are shadows in their bedrooms. These notations would later be included as evidence in the official investigation of the case. The turning point came during the Christmas holidays. The family had tried to maintain an appearance of normality, decorating a small artificial tree and preparing the traditional dinner. But according to Rosa's subsequent testimony before authorities, on the night of December 24th, while they were dining, all the house lights began flickering rhythmically for exactly 13 minutes. The temperature in the dining room dropped so drastically they could see their own breath, despite the heating working at maximum power. NIPSCO Electric Company records confirm unexplainable anomalies in the property's energy consumption during that period. It was then that LaToya made the decision to contact her church. Reverend Banks made his first visit to the house on December 27 of 2006. His report, filed in parish records and later shared with investigators, describes a palpable oppression upon crossing the threshold and an unnatural cold concentrated in specific areas, particularly around the basement stairs. He immediately recommended that the family seek additional spiritual help, a suggestion that would mark the beginning of a downward spiral into events that would defy all rational explanation. January 2007 brought with it an escalation of events that would be meticulously documented in multiple official reports. On January 3rd, at 2:45 in the morning, LaToya Ammons made the first of what would be 37 calls to 911 over the following 6 months. Emergency operator David Richardson recorded, resident reports violent banging sounds coming from the basement. Children's screams heard in background. Unit dispatched to 3860 Carolina Street. Officers Timothy Campbell and Marcus Washington arrived on scene at 3:05 in the morning. Their official report, case number 07-000345, describes finding the family gathered in the living room, visibly disturbed. Upon inspecting the basement, they found no evidence of intrusion, but Officer Campbell noted an unusual observation: temperature notably lower in basement compared to rest of house. Patrol car thermometer read 18 degrees Celsius on main floor, but dropped to 4 degrees in basement. No apparent explanation for thermal difference. On January 7th, Rosa Campbell took the children to the Methodist Hospital emergency room. Medical records, later obtained by the Indianapolis Star through a public information request, document bewildering injuries. The 7-year-old son presented bite marks on his back that didn't match any known human dental pattern. Dr. Sylvia Eckert, emergency physician with 15 years of experience, wrote in her report, "Marks present anomalous configuration. Spacing and depth are inconsistent with human or common domestic animal bites. Family insists they appeared spontaneously while the minor was sleeping." During that same hospital visit, an incident occurred that would be witnessed by multiple witnesses. According to the sworn statement of Nurse Willie Lee Walker, while waiting in the examination room, the 9-year-old boy began growling and his eyes rolled back. Without warning, the child rose from the floor and was thrown against the consultation room wall. Nurse Walker, with 23 years of service, would later testify, "I saw with my own eyes how that child levitated. He didn't jump, wasn't pushed. He floated in the air for several seconds before being thrown against the wall with a force no human could generate." The Indiana Department of Child Services opened a formal investigation on January 10 of 2007. The assigned social worker Valerie Washington made her first home visit on January 12. Her initial 22-page report would become one of the most extraordinary documents in the department's history. Washington wrote, "Upon entering the residence, I observed approximately 15 large flies congregated on the enclosed porch, despite sub-zero outside temperatures. Family reports flies appear daily regardless of how many times they fumigate." During that first visit, Washington personally witnessed several unexplainable phenomena. At 2:37 in the afternoon, while interviewing LaToya in the kitchen, all drawers and cabinets began opening and closing violently simultaneously for approximately 90 seconds. Washington documented, "There was no evidence of wires, devices, or mechanisms that could cause this phenomenon. Mrs. Ammons remained seated, visibly resigned, as if this were a regular occurrence." On January 15th, the family attempted to seek more specialized spiritual help. They contacted 3 different churches, but 2 refused to get involved after hearing the details. The third, the Apostolic Church of Deliverance, sent Deacon Michael Harris. His visit is documented in the parish record and in a subsequent police report, as Harris called 911 after witnessing what he described as unequivocal demonic manifestations. Harris reported that upon sprinkling holy water in the basement, the walls began showing stains of what appeared to be black oil seeping from inside the concrete. Samples were collected by the Gary Police Department and sent to the state laboratory. Results, dated January 25, indicated organic substance of undetermined origin, not matching any known compound in the database. The night of January 18th marked a critical point. The three children were found in a catatonic state in their beds at 4 in the morning. LaToya described them as awake but unresponsive, with completely white eyes. The ambulance transported them to Methodist Hospital, where they remained under observation for 72 hours. Electroencephalograms showed abnormal but non-epileptic brain activity. Dr. Rebecca Morrison, pediatric neurologist, documented brain wave patterns unprecedented in medical literature. All three children presented perfect synchronization in their readings, as if sharing a single consciousness. Police Captain Charles Austin decided to assign regular surveillance to the residence after the 15th emergency call. Officers reported lights turning on and off in empty rooms, shadows moving in windows of rooms they knew were unoccupied, and on one occasion, organ music emanating from the basement despite there being no musical instrument in the house. On January 22nd, the case took an even more disturbing turn when the 7-year-old son spoke to his grandmother in a deep voice that wasn't his own, speaking in what a linguistics professor from Indiana University would later identify as archaic Latin. The child, who barely mastered basic second-grade English, recited complex phrases that translated said, "We are legion, for we are many. This house belongs to us. Blood will be the price." Rosa recorded the event on her cell phone, and the recording would become crucial evidence in the subsequent investigation. January 23 of 2007 would remain etched in official files as the day the Ammons case transcended any rational explanation. At 10:30 in the morning, social worker Valerie Washington returned to Carolina Street accompanied by DCS supervisor Nancy Talbot, licensed child psychologist Sandra Matthews, and police officer Jason Brown as security escort. What they would witness that day would be documented in sworn statements that would change their lives forever. The joint report, signed by all present, describes that upon entering they found the family in the main living room. The three children were sitting on the couch, motionless, staring fixedly at the wall. LaToya explained they had been like that since 6 in the morning, not responding to external stimuli. When psychologist Matthews attempted to examine the 9-year-old son, the most documented incident of the case occurred. According to the 4 concordant official declarations, the boy mechanically stood up, walked toward the wall, continued walking up the wall perpendicular to the floor, crossed the ceiling walking upside down, took several steps on the ceiling, and descended down the opposite wall, all while his grandmother attempted to pray the Lord's Prayer. Nancy Talbot, with 28 years of experience in child services, would later write, "I have investigated hundreds of cases of abuse, neglect, and family disturbance. I had never witnessed something that defied the fundamental laws of physics. The boy walked on the ceiling for approximately 20 seconds. There were no wires, no tricks. Valerie Washington fainted. Officer Brown unholstered his weapon by instinct, though clearly there was nothing to use it against. Psychologist Matthews ran out of the house and vomited on the porch. Captain Charles Austin of the Gary Police Department made the unprecedented decision to officially involve religious consultants. On January 25, Father Michael Maginot, parish priest of St. Stephen Martyr Catholic Church in Merrillville, was contacted. Maginot, a priest with training in psychology and a doctorate in theology, initially showed skepticism. His first report to the Diocese of Gary, dated January 27, reflects this skepticism. "I proceeded with the presumption of mental illness or elaborate fraud." However, his second visit on January 28 dramatically changed his perspective. During an interview with LaToya in the living room, while Rosa and the children were in the kitchen, the Venetian blinds began undulating violently without any source of wind. Then, according to Father Maginot's testimony before Bishop Dale Melksek, LaToya began convulsing and levitated approximately half a meter above the couch for nearly a minute while speaking in multiple simultaneous voices, some masculine and others feminine, in languages Maginot identified as Spanish, German, and what appeared to be Aramaic. On January 30, Methodist Hospital readmitted the three children after they were found in their beds with body temperatures of 33 degrees Celsius, technically in severe hypothermia state, but completely conscious and not showing typical symptoms of extreme cold exposure. Dr. Rebecca Morrison documented, "Medically impossible. With that core body temperature they should be in coma or dead." However, all three children were alert, though not responding to questions. Their pupils didn't react to light and their tendon reflexes were absent, but they could move voluntarily. During their hospitalization, multiple hospital employees witnessed unexplainable phenomena. Nurse Patricia Coleman reported that the cardiac monitors of all three children showed exactly the same readings at the same time, identical beat by beat. Radiology technician James Patterson documented that X-ray machines malfunctioned only when attempting to examine the Ammons children. 5 different machines on 3 different floors experienced the same failures. On February 2nd, DCS made the decision to temporarily remove the children from the home. They were placed in 3 different foster homes to avoid mutual psychological contamination, according to the official report. However, all 3 homes reported disturbing incidents within the first 24 hours. The Johnson family, who took in the 7-year-old son, called emergency services when all crucifixes in their house, including one that had been in the family for 3 generations, appeared inverted and burned. The Smith family, with the 9-year-old son, reported their normally docile family dog became aggressive and had to be euthanized after savagely attacking the boy without provocation. The Williams family, caring for the 12-year-old daughter, found the words, "You cannot hide us," written in what appeared to be blood on the bathroom mirror, though subsequent analyses couldn't determine the substance's origin. Father Maginot, now convinced of the case's supernatural nature, formally requested authorization to perform an exorcism. The process required approval from Bishop Melchizedek, who assigned an investigation team including Father Gregory Thompson, expert in paranormal phenomena, and Dr. Richard Klein, psychiatric consultant for the diocese. Their 5-day investigation produced an 87-page report concluding, "The phenomena observed and documented by multiple credible witnesses, including medical professionals, social workers, and police officers, cannot be explained by known psychiatric, medical, or environmental factors." On February 10th, while the children remained in state custody, LaToya and Rosa continued experiencing intensified paranormal activity in the house. Police officers assigned to the case reported seeing solid dark figures moving through the windows when they knew only the 2 women were inside. Officer Timothy Campbell documented, "At 3:15 in the morning of February 11th, I clearly observed 7 distinct figures in the second-floor windows. I radioed requesting backup and we entered the property. We only found Mrs. Ammons and Mrs. Campbell huddled in the first-floor bathroom, praying. We searched the entire house. There was no one else." The case had begun attracting attention from national experts. Dr. William Peterson, paranormal researcher from Duke University, arrived February 12th with a team of technicians and specialized equipment. Their measurements documented extreme fluctuating electromagnetic fields without identifiable source, temperature variations of up to 20 degrees Celsius between adjacent rooms, and most disturbing, audio recordings capturing voices that weren't audible to those present at the time of recording. Spectrographic analysis of these voices indicated some operated at frequencies outside the normal range of human speech. February 15th marked another turning point when the 9-year-old son, while in his foster home under constant DCS observation, began describing in detail unsolved murders in Gary dating from the 70s. He provided names, dates, locations, and methods that were later verified with cold police files. Detective Michael Harrison from Gary Police Department would confirm the boy revealed details never made public, including locations of never recovered evidence. A search based on the boy's information led to discovering a knife buried exactly where he had indicated, with DNA matching a victim from 1978. On February 18th of 2007, Bishop Dale Melchizedek formally authorized the exorcism, a procedure that hadn't been performed in the Diocese of Gary in over 15 years. Father Michael Maginot was designated as principal exorcist, assisted by Father Gregory Thompson and Deacon Marcus Williams. The protocol required exhaustive preparation, including 3 days of fasting and prayer for the religious team. In parallel, Dr. William Peterson from Duke University intensified his scientific investigation. On February 20th, he installed 32 high-definition cameras, motion sensors, electromagnetic field detectors, and ultra-sensitive audio recorders throughout the house. His team included quantum physicist Dr. Sarah Chen from MIT and molecular biologist Dr. James Mitchell from Johns Hopkins. Their initial hypothesis explored the possibility of localized dimensional anomalies that could explain the observed phenomena. The first exorcism attempt was performed on February 23rd on LaToya Ammons at St. Stephen Martyr Church. The procedure, lasting 4 hours and 30 minutes, was documented on video with diocese authorization. During the ritual, according to Father Maginot's official report, LaToya manifested superhuman strength, requiring 5 adult men to keep her in the chair. She spoke fluent Latin, revealing private personal information about each person present that she couldn't have known, including the name of Father Thompson's deceased sister who had died at birth and was never publicly mentioned. On February 25th, Indiana Department of Health authorities conducted a complete inspection of the property. Chief Inspector Robert Martinez documented dangerous levels of carbon monoxide in certain areas, but readings fluctuated inexplicably minute by minute without any identifiable source of gas. They also found black mold in the basement, but the spores presented anomalous biological characteristics. Dr. Mitchell, upon analyzing the samples, reported, "The mold's DNA structure contains sequences that don't match any known organism in global genetic databases." On February 28, an unprecedented multidisciplinary team gathered at Carolina Street. It included FBI representatives, specifically from their Ritual Crimes Division, scientists from Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and specialist doctors from the Centers for Disease Control. FBI Special Agent David Reynolds would write in his classified report, later obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, "No evidence of fraud, manipulation, or deception was found. The witnessed phenomena defy conventional explanation and represent a significant challenge to our understanding of physical reality." On March 2nd, an exorcism was attempted on all 3 children simultaneously. The procedure was performed at Methodist Hospital under strict medical supervision. During the ritual, medical monitors recorded unprecedented anomalies. The 7-year-old son's body temperature rose to 42 degrees Celsius without causing brain damage. The 12-year-old daughter stopped breathing for 7 minutes without showing signs of hypoxia. The 9-year-old son showed 2 distinct heart rhythms simultaneously on the same monitor, something medically impossible according to cardiologist Dr. Jennifer Park. On March 5th, the Duke University team made a disturbing discovery. Audio recordings from the house, when played backward and slowed down 300%, contained coherent messages in Old English warning, "The door is open. More will come. The pact was sealed with blood 200 years ago." Historical investigation revealed that the land where the house was built had been the site of a series of unexplained disappearances in 1806, exactly 200 years before. Father Richard Zarofsky, demonology expert from the Vatican, was consulted via video conference on March 8. After reviewing all evidence, he declared this case presented characteristics of Level 5 demonic infestation, the most severe classification in Catholic Church protocols. He recommended immediate intervention from a specialized team from Rome, but the bureaucratic process would take weeks the family didn't have. On March 10, an alternative solution was attempted. Lakota shaman Joseph Crowfeather was invited on recommendation from cultural anthropologist Dr. Maria Santos from University of Chicago. Crowfeather performed a traditional cleansing ceremony involving burning white sage, sweetgrass, and cedar. During the ceremony, documented by the Duke team, cameras captured what appeared to be hundreds of luminous orbs emerging from the walls and converging in the basement. Crowfeather later declared, "I've dealt with spirits for 40 years. What inhabits that house is not from this world nor from the spiritual world I know. It's something much older and more malevolent." On March 12, Rabbi David Goldstein, expert in Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, examined the house and discovered symbols carved into the basement beams that had been previously overlooked. The symbols, when analyzed by ancient languages professor Dr. Marcus Webb from Oxford via digital photographs, were identified as a mixture of ancient Sumerian and Enochian symbols, supposedly the language of angels according to 16th-century esoteric texts. On March 15, the most intense exorcism to date was performed. For 6 continuous hours, 3 Catholic priests, 2 Protestant ministers, a Muslim imam, and Rabbi Goldstein performed rituals from their respective traditions simultaneously. The phenomena during this event were so extreme that the police department evacuated all houses within a 2-block radius. Witnesses reported seeing the physical house vibrate and distort, as if the structure itself was being subjected to forces beyond comprehension. On March 18 of 2007, after months of documented terror, the Ammons family made the decision to permanently abandon the Carolina Street house. Department of Child Services records show the children were reunified with their mother on March 20th, under the strict condition of never returning to the property. They moved to Indianapolis, where according to DCS follow-up reports, paranormal phenomena gradually ceased over the following 6 weeks. However, the house at 3860 Carolina Street continued being an enigma. Owner Charles Reed attempted to rent it again in April 2007. The Thompson family lasted exactly 13 days before fleeing in the middle of the night, abandoning all their belongings. According to the April 25 police report, the Thompsons claimed their 2 children began speaking in the same voices and languages that the Ammons children had manifested. The case attracted international media attention when the Indianapolis Star published an exhaustive investigation in October 2012, including 800 pages of official documents obtained through public information requests. Journalist Marissa Kwiatkowski interviewed 37 official witnesses. All maintained their original testimonies 5 years later. Officer Timothy Campbell declared, "I know what I saw. It changed my perspective on reality. I haven't slept well since then." In 2014, Zach Bagans, paranormal investigator and host of the show Ghost Adventures, bought the house for $35,000. His documented 3-day investigation produced additional disturbing evidence, including a video recording where a 3-meter-tall shadow figure clearly appears in the basement. Bagans reported experiencing psychological oppression so intense I contemplated suicide, something he had never experienced in 20 years of paranormal investigations. On February 16 of 2016, Bagans made the unprecedented decision to completely demolish the house. The demolition was filmed, and during the process, workers reported that excavators experienced unexplainable mechanical failures. 3 different operators refused to continue after claiming they saw hundreds of shadows emerging from the debris. The house remains were incinerated and dispersed at undisclosed locations to prevent them from becoming relics. But the physical destruction of the house didn't end the mystery. Police records show the vacant lot continues generating unusual reports. Neighbors have documented unexplainable lights floating over the empty land, sounds of crying children emanating from the ground, and a perfectly circular dead zone 3 meters in diameter where no vegetation grows, exactly where the basement entrance was. Father Michael Maginot, in a 2018 interview, reflected on the case. "In my 40 years of priesthood, I never experienced anything similar. It fundamentally changed my understanding of good and evil. I believe that house was a portal, an entry point for something we shouldn't have disturbed. The fact that phenomena continue after demolition suggests the problem was never the physical structure, but something much deeper in that place." The Ammons children, now adults, have maintained a low profile. In a rare public statement in 2020, the youngest son, now 21 years old, said, "I don't remember much from that period. It's like a blurry dream. But I still have nightmares. I see shadows watching me. I hear voices calling me. My siblings experience the same. We live in different states now, but we all feel something follows us, waiting." The Indiana Department of Child Services conducted an internal review of the case in 2021. Their 200-page report concludes, "The events documented in the Ammons case defy conventional child welfare protocols. The concordance of testimonies from multiple trained professionals suggests they witnessed genuinely anomalous phenomena. This case has led to creation of new protocols for situations involving paranormal activity allegations. The scientific community remains divided. While some researchers like Dr. Peterson continue studying collected data, seeking explanations within paradigms of quantum physics and multiple dimension theory, others have dismissed the case as collective hysteria despite overwhelming documentary evidence. Theoretical physicist Dr. Chin published a controversial article suggesting the house could have been a dimensional thinning point where barriers between parallel realities had weakened. The Ammons case remains officially unresolved. Files at Gary Police Department, Indiana DCS, and Gary Diocese remain open. To date, it's considered one of the most documented paranormal activity cases in United States history, with sworn testimonies from over 40 professionals including police officers, doctors, social workers, psychologists, and clergy. The question persists: what really inhabited that Carolina Street house? And more disturbing still, is it still there, waiting in that vacant lot, or did it leave with the family, an invisible but eternal presence that will accompany them forever?